Gervais Restaurant, authentic French cuisine in Silicon Valley.
So Flickr started out, we moved here from Vancouver, Canada, which is where Stewart's actually, he's the Canadian, I'm actually American. We started a company in 2002, and here's the interesting thing is that we actually didn't start the company to build Flickr, we actually started it to build a game, an online game. Our background isn't in games though, our background is in web development and social software. So we're really interested in the way that people interact with each other online and online communities and those kinds of things. And at some point the development, the back-end development got really behind the front-end development on the game, and being kind of irrepressible makers and doers, we had a bunch of side projects that we made, and one of those side projects was Flickr. It was a photo sharing site. We launched it in February of 2004. No, is that right? Yeah. 2004.
Yeah,
February 2004, and it was a very early kind of alpha preview version. And it was interesting because it actually started out as kind of like chat software that you could kind of drag and drop photos into conversations. It eventually evolved into what you see today, which is a web-based photo sharing service. And I think one of the things that's really significant about Flickr and the way that it developed is, one, it was designed primarily to be a social application. It was designed to be an application where you shared things between people, where you formed social networks, where you got photos from your friends and family, and you kind of you would kind of log in and you would see all of your friends and family's photos all gathered together. And I think another significant part of the evolution of Flickr was that it evolved a lot out of blogging and social networking. And both of those things I think were significant because previous to Flickr, most photo sharing services weren't really public. There wasn't, kind of the idea of uploading all of your pictures and anybody could just browse them and anybody could see them. So this was one thing that distinguished it from, traditional photo sharing services, if there's such a thing as a traditional online photo sharing service, like oPhoto or Shutterfly or something like that. So it kind of came from a different philosophy and a different background. And I'd say that kind of one of the things about it was that it was kind of I would call it like a digital native product. It didn't inherit the previous metaphors from the old technologies. You know how like when new technologies come out, they kind of there's kind of like silly things like they call them like the horseless carriage. Like the car was originally called the horseless carriage. And I think photo sharing sites at that time when we were developing this had kind of inherited the paradigms and the metaphors of kind of photo albums, and kind of like the nature of sharing offline had kind of made its way online. And I think that Flickr was kind of a leap into something that was like kind of like native to the digital realm, and that was one of the things that was significant about it.
What gave you the idea to actually mix blogging and photo sharing and social networking together?
Our subconscious.
Our subconscious?
Did you see something on the market, something on the internet? Oh, that's...
No, it was actually, it was a very organic process. As Caterina said, it was a side project based on a lot of the technologies we had produced for the game. Well, we worked on both for about 6 months or so after Flickr launched.
Right, which for a 6-person company was tough. We're resource light.
Yeah, and essentially Flickr got more popular, so we put more resources into it, and it got more popular, and eventually just took over the whole company.
Yeah.
But we ended up really with massively multiplayer photo sharing. So in the same way that there's obviously a lot of work that goes into something like World of Warcraft, but the fun of it comes from all the people participating, and the same is true of Flickr. When we, without any false modesty, we do a lot of work, but at the same time, a lot of the value for any of the individual users comes from the interactions with the other users. And I don't know. I don't have a pat answer to how it evolved to where it did, except that it was a very talented team of developers, and we were very quick to iterate. So especially in the beginning, in the first 4 to 6 months, it was literally changed every day, and we'd try things out, and new users were coming on, and there's a small dedicated community of people that we could get feedback from. We just iterated very quickly, and almost like a dialectical process between us as the developers and then the users.
Gervais Restaurant, authentic French cuisine in Silicon Valley.
So,
the chat function that was originally in the software is gone?
yeah, on the technical side, that was based on all the framework that was developed for the game. And Flickr had essentially had different scaling requirements, and so the technology kind of branched, and then the live interaction branched, atrophied over time.
Another thing I think that's very significant about Flickr is that there's a bunch of different ways that you can group photos or participate in actual groups. Some of the things that we anticipated that people would form groups for were things like weddings or reunions or those kinds of events, and those were kind of like typically what we thought people were going to make groups about. But we were actually very surprised to find that people were using groups for a bunch of different things. Like they would actually kind of create these wonderful projects. So Stewart will bring up maybe an example of, okay, yeah, here's a great group. It's called Wardrobe Remix. And basically what people do is they upload photographs of themselves in their outfits, and they explain what they're wearing and where they got, she has a snood and a hairnet. Wow, this is really very daring fashion. And, she kind of describes everything that she's got on. And there's this kind of wonderful group of people that from all over the world are uploading photos of their outfits. Like, I know that, our guests here from Japan have probably seen a lot of this happening in Japan on, things like fruits. And I don't know if you guys know those magazines like that, but this is kind of like one of the uses that we never really anticipated people would be using them for. And people just do these amazing projects together, and they kind of collaborate on these things together. They, there's groups where, for example, they've got people putting up consecutive numbers. So you upload, 573, and there's a bunch of people all over the world running around trying to find 500.
What's that one called?
And 74. I wish I knew what that was called. Consecutive numbers. Consecutive number hunt?
Mm-hmm.
No, that's not it.
That's not the main one.
That's not the main
42,
one.
43.
They've only gotten up to 47, it looks like.
Yeah.
But there's a bunch of groups that do, and there's like groups that kind of people take photographs of a line that connects to other lines. There's one, show what's in your bag. Okay. What's in your bag is a really good one.
You guys were developing this. Were you surprised that no one had done this before?
In some way, well, here's the thing that was interesting about it, is that people had done things like this on the web, like little projects, and this is one of the things that I really love about the internet, is that I think it was really founded on the principle of what I call a culture of generosity. Like when the web first started, it was all about people were uploading pictures of, their pets, or they put up recipes, or they put up a discography of their favorite band or essays they'd written, and people were that was what was amazing about it. When I first saw it in 93, 94, that was what got me excited about it, and you could have these you could just kind of explore, and people were just kind of putting all this kind of stuff up. So this, I think that, this sort of much vaunted Web 2.0 thing that everybody's talking about is really a return to the web's roots, but with a lot more people, and you don't have to be a power user anymore. Like back in 94 or whatever, even before the web, like in, the 80s and early 90s, you had to be a power user. You had to be able to, write HTML in order to put up a web page. You had to get access to a server. All those kinds of things it was a really high friction process that was really difficult to do. And I think that what was always fascinating about it was these connections with other people. And that what the sort of like Web 2.0 thing is really those connections with other people. It's really those you know, all of the software that's being built is really facilitating the things that the web was originally incredibly good at, but were really difficult. And now there's so many people online, and there's broadband, and so everything has the kind of the friction has been reduced significantly, you know, for that to happen.
Yeah.
Gervais Restaurant, authentic French cuisine in Silicon Valley.
What's Web 2.0 for you? What does it mean? Does it mean that?
Yeah, so that's kind of part of, like, that's how I think of it. I think the Web 2.0 has become something of a grab bag in how it's been defined. I see it personally, and I always look at things from the vantage point of social software. So from my vantage point, what I see it being is it being a kind of a way of connecting all of these people in new ways, and people interacting, and all of the social interactions being kind of captured, and you know, being able to do interesting things. Like, one of the things that I think that is very significant that Flickr does is interestingness. We might want to go to the Explore page. You want to talk a little bit about interestingness and how it works?
Let's skip,
wow.
Yeah. Let's skip back up for just a second, because I think everyone has at least some familiarity with Flickr. But it's often described as a photo sharing site, so when people hear that, they think of what Caterina was referring to before as the traditional model of photo sharing sites. But it's kind of funny to say traditional when it's 6 years old, but really, and I know you've heard, at least you've heard this spiel before, but it's a fundamentally different model of photography than what consumer photography has been for the last 100 years, where traditionally it's been about memory preservation of life events, so weddings, graduation, vacation, new baby, things like that. And as you see in the Wardrobe Remix group, and a bunch of other groups we'll touch on, it's a totally different behavior, and people are using photographs almost as a pretext for social interaction. They play games like this. This is Guess Where London. There's Guess Where groups for Tokyo and for San Francisco and for cities all over the world, where people upload photos and don't tell you where it is, and you have to guess where it is based on your knowledge of the city, and then they reveal it at the end. But there's so much social activity in Flickr, even if it's just the more traditional and more personal model of photo sharing. So we have Caterina's sister has a 14-month-old nephew, and she uploads photos of them every day. They're kept private for friends and family, but we still comment on them. Caterina is a little bit obsessive compulsive with tags, so she's the family tagger.
Yeah.
But all that social activity gives us a lot of information, so that's what leads into Explore. We have a metric called interestingness, which tries to look at how interesting a photo is. Doesn't necessarily mean how good it is, like the formal quality of the photo, but how interesting it is to you. Often it means it's just a good photo. So like this one, obviously very dramatic and interesting.
What is that?
The sun patch on a cloud.
Is that just the sun behind a cloud? It seems as if it's amazing. Cloud formation, yeah, sunset.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
So we look at people's reaction to the photo, all the different people who commented on it, and let's see, 11 people added this photo to their favorites list. You can see a list of them, and so that activity results in which tab am I on? There we go. It results in this interestingness metric. So every day we pull out 500 photos, and there's about 1 million photos uploaded a day, and it's all automated.
Oh, it's automated.
Yeah, all automated. So you never know what we're going to get when we hit this page. This is some random high-ranking or high-interestingness photos from the last 7 days.
It's a bunny with a stuffed animal on its head.
Yeah.
It's very cute.
It's like a Japanese character.
Anyway, it's amazingly, I mean, it's just all algorithmic, so it's really good at picking out some of the most interesting stuff. But of course, it's only 500 out of 1 million a day, so I don't, what is that? 1 million. Yeah.
So it's only 500 of them.
Yeah, and that's...
And the metrics are primarily around user reaction?
Yeah. We look at, so some things are obvious, how many people added to their favorites, how many people comment, but we also look at the relationship between the person who's doing the commenting and the person who uploaded the photo. So someone who you've counted as family, for example, counts for
You can't get your mom, for example, to add it as a favorite and then rise in the interestingness.
Yeah.
So you said 1 million photos a day. How many photos do you have?
over 250 million now. I think we crossed 250 million a few days ago. So it's,
Lots.
we've been around for more than 250 days, obviously, so it's spiking up, going very quickly.
And traffic? What kind of traffic do you get?
Last month, so July, there was 19 million uniques.
19 or 90?
19. 90, a couple years.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
19 million unique visitors. No, 19.
19 in July.
Yeah, in July. 19 million unique visitors in that month. There's 5 million registered users, so there's more of an audience than there are necessarily people uploading photos. Up to last month. Now, we're at, I think we're just under 5 million registered users now.
And most of the registered users are active users, or there are some.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's always some that don't really use it. There's over 1 million, I think 1.2 million uniques per day.
What is that compared to the 5 million a year ago?
5 million uniques?
Yeah. Registered 5 million registered users. How many did a year ago?
A year ago, last September, I don't remember off the top of my head, I can get back to you on that. At the time we were acquired, and that was in March of last year, so a year and a half ago, it was about 300,000. I would guess around 750,000. But if you get in touch with Stephen or Mary or anyone after, find out. Sorry, this is a great example point. As Caterina said, there's a lot of groups that we expected people to make. So there's a Nikon users group, and there's people who are into night photography or wildlife photography. But we introduced a feature where you could make a slideshow out of any collection of photos. So all the photos that had been added to a group, or all the photos that resulted from a search. And someone decided that it would be trippy to make a slideshow of square photos of circular subjects where the edges of the circle touch the edges of the square. And so they created this group, and now, I'll find out in a second, there's something like 30,000 photos.
Yeah, it's like 30, I just hit that page, it's 37,000 photos in this group.
37,000.
It's great. And it's really funny because you can get sort of addicted to these groups, and you become really boring to walk around town with. You're like, oh, excuse me, I have to stop and take a picture. You see a good squared circle, and you end up, you see them everywhere. Like when you join these groups, it actually changes your perception of the world, because you start wandering around and you see things everywhere, and you're like, oh, I have to take it.
Yeah.
So it's fun.
Do you have any idea of how many people are using this for commercial purposes to save photos or give money to someone?
There's no. We don't have an exact number. We know it happens literally every day. There's no formal mechanism in Flickr to support it. But even back around, about 2 years ago, near the end of 2004, the first story we heard about that happening. Let's see if I can find the actual photo, the Walmart distribution photo.
Oh, it should be probably easy to find.
Before we leave the squared circle, let's see. Yeah, 4,200 members and almost 38,000 photos.
Yeah.
Crazy. So the very first story we heard about someone selling a photo that they had added to Flickr was, there we go, this guy right here. He uploaded this photo of a Walmart distribution center, and then a reporter from the Boston Globe was writing a story about Walmart distribution centers, and the photo editor happened to be a Flickr user, and so did a search. And at the time we had maybe 60,000 users or something like that, so it was much smaller. Found this photo, sent an email to the person who uploaded it, and negotiated a price and bought it and put it in the store. And now we hear that happening
daily,
a dozen times a day.
Another kind of business, which is called this. Businesses using this.
Well, Flickr is explicitly for personal and non-commercial use only, so we have a lot of demand from businesses, and that is across a broad spectrum. So things like a sport fishing resort launch, they like to upload photos of the people going on their tours, or an antique shop uploading photos of their product catalog. But one of the appeals of Flickr is that it's very heavily, each photo is heavily tied to another user, so there's something more human about it. So we don't want, for example, stock photo libraries pumping photos in, or a lot of product shots. And it's possible that we'll figure out some way to facilitate that because there's so much demand for it, but it's much more about individual people using it than corporations or commercial use.
Gervais Restaurant, authentic French cuisine in Silicon Valley.
Caterina, to capitalize on Elias' question, maybe you can talk a little bit about how Flickr has kind of become the immediate eyes on the world and there's been news of that, and how certain media organizations have used Flickr to
we actually
immediately get photos up about things that they may not have photos in targeting their own phone.
How about just last night, actually, Neil Buddy, who's the editor at Yahoo News, editor-in-chief, sent me this. They had been following the reaction to the coup in Thailand through people's photo streams, and this is a Flickr user named Dan Kaspers uploading photos. You can see the family snapshots on the tanks, and the soldiers, everyone's wearing the yellow ribbons, which are showing support for the king, including on the tanks. You can see the guy up there. And so it was interesting, the editors at Yahoo News contacted a bunch of the people who had uploaded photos from the scene, and then telephoned one of them and did a voice interview, and then made a slideshow. And watch that for a second. Oh, you probably won't be able to hear the audio.
Oh, here. For sure.
Yeah, that's right.
There's no point when there are any incentives anywhere I went. Troops are almost happy, and the people are coming up to them with food and flowers, families proposing and stuff. So, it's really quite cool. That kind of dynamic. The flowers you see on the front of the tanks and all the metal fencing and it's really very tight. No sense of anger or menace or disturbance really. Yellow ribbon represents any colour every Monday here in Thailand. In our country, red yellow represents the love of the king. In a way, it's almost like a holiday or a tourist opportunity. You see Western people who can be on vacation, swinging by likewise you see families coming to the area.
Sorry the audio is so quiet. But for me, this was great. So when Neil sent me an email yesterday evening, just about to leave the office, to point it out, I had a bunch of meetings yesterday and the day before, but I was actually reading sort of watching the news in the background as I went. And one of the things that was very difficult to get a sense of, both from Yahoo News, other sites, CNN, the BBC, basically went to a variety of news sites to read about it. There was no sense of what it was, the scene was like on the streets of Bangkok. Whether people were fearful, they were hiding in their houses, whether there was actually the Prime Minister had declared martial law from abroad, but whether that had any impact on the street. So this was a really fantastic way to get an insight through a bunch of people. So they used, I think, 5 or 6 Flickr users' photos here and got in touch with them. But this is also something that happens every day. I'll bring up a couple of other ones.
Have you thought of maybe integrating a system where you can sell your pictures directly through Flickr, a little bit like Google Videos, and you might be able to sell your videos?
It has occurred to us. And if this is, you've seen these examples before actually as well. This is the riots in Paris. Back in March, and at the same time there was the election in Belarus. So 2 things about this. One is the quality of the photographs is fantastic. It's as good as anything that you could get from Corbis or AP or Reuters. And the second thing, just open this one because it's my favorite. That's me.
Alright, sorry, we're making commentary. He's like, there I am.
This was my favorite photo. You can notice the title is Polka. It's just,
JB's in the back eating a croissant.
yeah. But down beneath, this one was really interesting to me. These of the protests in Minsk, because a lot of Western journalists were kicked out, but more importantly, a lot of the state-owned media in Belarus was prevented from. They didn't report on what was actually going on in the streets. So one of the ways for people in Minsk to communicate with each other was uploading photos to Flickr. And I'll do one more of these examples. This is in Santiago, Chile. They had a series of protests, again following education reforms. There's a huge number of photos here on Flickr. But so I'll show a sample of them, but there's one special one at the end. So taken by dozens of different users, showing the scene all over the city. And a lot of it live as it happens. But this one, we really like it. So here, there's a police officer, and a couple of frames ago, he was beating one of the protesters with a nightstick, and then someone came in to help him. And you can see this person here has a camera, this person's shooting the shot, same thing with this person, there's another video camera over there. But on the back of this person's backpack is a Flickr sticker.
We like that
even
so much.
in Santiago, it's almost like their press credentials. And he went there, it was on his backpack there.
Yeah.
So can you elaborate on what Jamie just asked, and that it actually has a policy to be more commercial?
Yeah, well, I don't think we'd ever want Flickr to be more commercial. I'd hope that the activities of the users are the same way, and we would not make that part of the main Flickr experience, because I think it would turn off a lot of people to have buy now.
Next to the pictures of their kids.
But for that Walmart distribution center is a good example, because the person who uploaded isn't a professional photographer in the sense that they have a business and the invoice is already ready to go. The photo editor has to call him, negotiate. He doesn't know what prices he should charge. You have to go do some research. And then probably their accounting department hires a negotiator to make them up, and then they have to figure out how he's going to get the money. Maybe use PayPal or mail or a check. All those kinds of things. So there's a huge amount of friction there. And there's obviously a lot of demand for photos from Flickr users, and there's a huge amount of supply. So reducing the friction would be something that would be a big value, but I think that would be outside of the main Flickr experience, so users could opt in to a system that allowed that, and people who wanted to buy photos would be able to search for them, but it definitely wouldn't make it part of the experience.
How concrete are those plans?
Sorry?
How concrete are those plans?
It's highly speculative.
How are you monetizing Flickr? And how do you make money?
Well, there's two ways. One is advertising. So here's a set of probably less appropriate ads, but this is the search I did for what's in your bag. We never showed. We should come back to that. I kept this page open because it's funny how many knockoff groups there are.
What's really in your bag?
And what's in your makeup bag. We use sponsored search advertisement on these kinds of pages. And there's some other advertising relationships we have, one with Nikon, and a few other on the branded side, but also through subscription sales. So if you go back to this group and you see all the members here, so you see this little pro icon next to the username. That means that they have they're a subscriber to Flickr, so they pay for a premium account every year.
What does it get you?
Yeah, it gets more upload capacity. So well, there's a couple of little benefits, but the primary one is
storage or benefit.
Unlimited storage.
Yeah, unlimited storage.
Unlimited storage.
It's the easier way to explain it for sure.
Yep. You get unlimited storage.
And the size of the pictures, I mean, you're resizing all the pictures on the fly, or or do you set a maximum size of the picture?
Well, if you look, depending on your permissions with the photo you're looking at, we generate all different kinds of sizes. So
you can make little thumbnails and
medium. And this person has set a flag in their account that says they don't want everyone to have access to their original size. So this large size is as big as available to me.
But I think one of the things that's significant about Flickr that's different from other photo sites is that you can set the access of who can print your photos, and then anybody in your family conceivably could go, and if they see a photo that they like, a family photo, they can download it and they can print it on their home printer, or they can send it to a digital photo printing service themselves. So you can get to,
and you can make the original photos available to anyone.
Right. So like super high res.
So I make mine available.
Photos are available for printing. And some people don't mind if they kind of give the permission. That's not the default, but some people will like make it possible for anybody to print their photos. There's some really amazing photos that are available through Creative Commons or through just people making their photos available.
So any issue related to cultural related to give away mine?
No, you don't. No, people can sort of. There's maybe even too many options and preferences that you can set to control that. So you could keep a photo completely private, or you can make it visible to more people. Even if you do that, you can restrict who's able to log the photo, or who's able to access the original size. Even things like who's able to comment or add notes or tags, who's able to print it. There's configurable preferences for all those things.
Upload a picture of some certain choices to.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
The copyright for the photo is still owned
by the owner. Yeah.
How about the metadata that's actually on this? People add on tags and other things to that.
Yeah.
Do you guys own the copyright to that?
No. Nope.
Have there been any conflicts with the advertising, the links, the sponsored links by photograph, for instance, all companies?
We used to have contextual ads on individual photos. So on this page there was a contextual ad, but there was too many conflicts like that. Basically, there was a woman who traveled to Newfoundland to protest the seal hunts, and then there was ads for products on her page, and she got very angry. So it works. It's fine in aggregate. So when you do a search and you get a lot of results.
Yeah. So if you do a search, for example,
I saw the one with the bags, like
they're not necessarily always relevant. Sometimes they're very relevant, though. So in the bag one, it was advertising vacuum cleaner bags, which is probably irrelevant. But it's rarely harmful in the sense that it can be. It seems strange if it's on an individual photo. There's another series that was someone had taken a series of photos of her father who had suffered from depression, and then there's ads for Canadian pharmacy cheap anti-depression medications. And it's just
contextually. But here's the thing that I think is good is that, like, in the aggregate, this is not being run next to anybody's photo in particular. I think that when you kind of have advertising, and a lot of photo sites do this, when you have advertising on the individual photo pages, it's problematic. In the aggregate, you're likely to get much more relevant ads. So
does that limit the ability to make money with Flickr?
No, I don't think so.
It doesn't. Because those ads, like, I actually am kind of surprised when you see sites like MySpace or whatever, like, running ads against people's personal photographs, because we know from experience that ad revenue is it's negligible. You really shouldn't.
For the same reasons, it doesn't perform very well either.
Yeah, it's the same reason, like, it doesn't actually perform well. This actually performs really well, because people who are interested in Tokyo, or they're actually looking to see which part of Kauai they should go to, and which hotel. This is actually relevant kind of advertising to serve against that. Whereas, if I have I have a personal photograph, there's not a significant amount of, like, context to decide what that query is about.
So you're saying it's negligible because you don't get sufficient click-throughs?
Well, like, you would probably, like, kind of agree as an end user that, when you see advertising, like, kind of against people's personal photos, it generally isn't relevant to, you know, the reason
Or
that
just
you're
take the
there.
photo of Caterina playing the banjo from the beginning, maybe tagged with Caterina and banjo. But I'm unlikely to be interested in buying a banjo right at the moment when I see the photo of her.
Right.
And there's no ads for Caterina. Maybe there's a Caterina Valente CD or something like that. But it's pretty tenuous at that point. Whereas, just in the way that search advertising works, generally search advertising works in the context of it.
Right. It's the same, same principle.
Which engine are you using for search advertising?
Yahoo. Yahoo sponsored search. So the same source of ads that shows up on the regular web search. Yahoo obviously has a lot of different ad systems, and we tend to do a lot of experimentation with different algorithms and different programs and stuff like that.
How many people subscribe to the premium service? Do you disclose that?
We don't disclose. But I'm allowed to say it's good.
Awesome.
Each and every one is good, right?
Yeah.
Both of them. I mean,
Is there anything about revenue?
No, we can't see it. Sorry. It's public company disclosure. You can ask Sue.
Let's talk about the map.
The answer's going to be same.
Where's the map?
There we go.
Okay.
So.
It's one of our newest features, which is really cool.
When was it introduced?
A couple of weeks ago?
2 weeks ago?
2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
2 weeks. This is very
Maybe 3 weeks. Something like that.
Yeah.
2 or 3 weeks.
Somebody needs a specific date. Let me know and I'll get back to you.
As you can see, there's 4.2 roughly million photos that are public. There's actually about somewhere between 5.5 and 6 million photos that have been geotagged, but some of the photos are private, and some of the photos are public, but the location information is private. So there's pretty advanced privacy controls on that stuff, because some people don't mind having a photo of their children public, but don't want the location that the photo was taken public as well. But there's 4.2 million public, so let's someone call out a place or a thing, and we'll
Helsinki.
Here, I'll tell you what. I'll give you one example, or two examples to start. On the Explore page, we pulled a couple of random ones.
About
this urban decay.
Somebody doing this for like tracking famous people? Like I saw this guy's live here and then they geotag it.
I haven't seen that yet, but that's certainly.
Oh, that's a good one. It's only a matter of time.
Celebrity stalking.
Yeah.
So this is there's a big group called Night Images, which is a night photography group, and this is photos they've taken all over Europe.
At night.
And the numbers, does it mean it's like one photo in...
This is it means how many photos are in this page, and there's 2,373 photos from the Night Images pool in this visible area. We're still working on the best UI for presenting that, because there's really far more, but this looks like it's around Cologne, maybe, on the south. There's really more photos than that 16 taken there, but we can only show so many at a time.
For the geotagging itself, is it a analog where people enter in the location, or do you actually get like GPS data off itself?
We do pretty much everything. So when to be honest, there's not a lot of automated GPS data available, but we import it from what's called EXIF and IPPC metadata that's attached to the photos. So some people a few people have phones that are capable of recording it, and there we go. You can also drag the photos onto the map, which is pretty simple drag and drop. I actually did these ones yesterday. There you go. But there's Yahoo Research Berkeley has a great prototype application called ZoneTag, which runs on mobile phones, which if you have a GPS unit nearby that understands Bluetooth, it'll grab the information off of Bluetooth, or it tries to infer your location from the signal strength of the cell tower that's attached to it, and then it'll suggest tags. And it actually does even cooler stuff, where it looks at upcoming, which is another Yahoo acquisition, and looks for events that are at the same time and place you're taking the photo, and then suggests tags based on those events as well. So it can figure out that you're at a certain event and then make the association together.
Gervais Restaurant, authentic French cuisine in Silicon Valley.
It has its own database, its own tag database, and then it looks in Flickr for suggested tags. It looks in its own database for context, and also in Upcoming. Also in Upcoming?
Upcoming.org, which is it's like events application for concerts or parades.
Tell you're at that event. Do you have like an algorithm that if you're at a concert?
It suggests the tag to you. You can say whether you are or not. But if it knows that at the address, the exact location you're at 7 p.m. and it's 7:15.
Like if we were to actually take a photo right now.
You have zone tag on your.
I have it on my phone.
Yeah.
If we were to take a photo right now, it would probably recommend the tag Yahoo. Because other people who have been in the same place have taken photos and tagged them Yahoo. So it would make that connection.
And there's people who are really GPS nerds, basically. Geocaching is a popular activity. So what what people do is they have a GPS device that produces what's called track logs, which is a bunch of times and then the location you're at that time, and they upload their track logs to a site that works with Flickr to find all their photos, see what time the photos are taken at, and then compares it to the track logs, and looks for places where, according to the track log, they're staying still, so it could be fairly still to take a photo, and then adds the geo information to the photo.
From the IP address where you were, or?
No, just the time you took the photo, and the location the track log say you were at that time.
The track log, that's on the...
Track log is something that's produced by the GPS device.
Oh, okay.
So this is not a very widespread.
And the time is from the timestamp on the photo.
Yeah. And we had projected about 1 million geotag photos after the first month, but we got 1.25 million in the first day. I think the popularity of that is probably a good indication to manufacturers of consumer cameras that it would be an interesting thing to try to put GPS chips in. Sony has already done one of them, and there's a couple of others that have been announced, but we haven't seen them start shipping yet.
So would you a statistic?
Sure thing. We had projected 1 million geotag photos after the first 30 days, so 30 days after the launch, and we ended up getting 1.25 million in the first 24 hours.
What is Flickr's importance to Yahoo?
Yahoo?
It's a good question. One is anything that has a lot of audience and activity is an interesting thing to Yahoo generally. And anything that has a large audience.
Yeah. Anything that has a large audience and activity.
Oh, and activity, yeah. The Flickr users tend to be very passionate and committed. If we go back to the blog page for a second, along the left-hand side, you see the upcoming meetups.
Karlsruhe, Montreal,
I
London,
don't even know where that is.
Stonehenge,
National?
Winter Solstice, Flickr meetup,
Omaha.
Mauritius. There's meetups in
This is local user
Tehran.
meetups. Yeah, and they happen in Kuala Lumpur. My favorite one was Tehran, and because it was at the height of the news reports about the initial showdown between the U.S. And meanwhile, there's regular people who are interested in photography in Tehran having a meetup and doing exactly the same things that people do at the San Francisco meetups, which is show off their cameras, show off photos, they go for a walk, find interesting things to take photos of. It's kind of nice to see that. But the interest of Yahoo, that's one. Another is we're starting to see lots more integrations, so things like the Yahoo News.
The Thailand slideshow that we saw earlier.
Yeah. And particularly the geotag photos, it's still there. So it's still on the front page of Yahoo News. But all of the photos and all the metadata, all the geotag images, all have a nice potential impact in many areas of Australia. So news is one of them. yeah, the local maps, weather, travel, real estate, and marketing services. Yeah.
And photo. There's Yahoo Photos. So
there is Yahoo Photos
and Yahoo Photos. So when to choose which, and does it make sense to actually integrate those?
Probably not. To be honest, we don't have some grand plan that we're working towards in that regard. It's still kind of a wait and see, because the behaviors that we've seen evolving, especially over the last couple of years, because it was only 5 years ago that digital cameras started becoming mainstream. There's still, I think it's about 60% in the U.S., slightly higher in parts of Asia and stuff like that. But it's still not the case that everyone has a digital camera yet. But the behaviors that you see in Yahoo Photos are very different than the ones you see in Flickr.
I think that one of the things I think that's really significant is that one of the things that was great for Flickr was that I think 2003 was really the year that camera phones started to take off, and we were extremely well timed, because I think that the behavior around camera phones is very different from traditional, when people kind of just had film cameras. We kind of discarded the whole sort of album metaphor, and what we call a person's collection of photos is a photo stream, and that really sort of is a different kind of behavior. It sort of like assumes that as I'm sitting here, I have a camera with me and I can take a photo of what's going on around me, and the behavior is very, very different. I mean, you have things like interesting photos of some funny snail that I saw on the way to work, and I'll take a photo of that, where normally I wouldn't have my camera with me. It would be very expensive to kind of like pay for film and developing, and kind of there's a lot of kind of barriers to kind of those things happening, and so it becomes much more immediate, and it's like a much more kind of a flow of information, and in some ways I think that it replaces blogging in some ways. I think for most people it's very difficult to express themselves in a blog post, and people are kind of self-conscious about their writing, and it's also a kind of a thing that's really difficult to both produce, to write something, and then also to consume, because you can kind of scan, I can scan this page of photos and kind of pick out the ones that I'm interested in looking at, whereas I could not do the same thing with a screen full of my friends' blog posts. So in some ways I think it's kind of like a new kind of means of communication for people.
And this is a great example. Esther Dyson was one of the investors in Flickr, and she had a blog prior to the launch of Flickr, and she actually just stopped blogging and started using photos instead. So one of the things that, and this is the kind of thing, she just uploaded this photo, but when we started the meeting, I'd seen this one and I meant to mention it, because that's enough to know that she was in Dubai.
Yeah.
So you get, it's sort of everyone throwing out these photos all the time, gives you almost an ambient sense of what's going on in the lives of people you care about.
What about videos?
It's a good question. I think going back to what we were saying originally about the game and Flickr, in one sense, Flickr is definitely a photo site. There's a lot of people who are really into photography, hobbyists and enthusiasts and amateur photographers. And so it had to be about photography. But in another sense, it could have been anything. The social activity that you see in Wardrobe Remix or What's in My Bag or those kinds of projects, the collaborative and people coming together to work on something, could have been video, could have been audio, it could have been anything. As a practical matter, photos are much easier for people to produce and for people to consume for people to take in. So I can take in a page of photos much easier than a dozen videos.
So we won't see Flickr enabling uploading videos?
It's definitely not out of the question, but we wouldn't see, there's a lot of stuff going on with video on the web generally right now, and you usually those kinds of things, so the viral video or the mashups and stuff like that, aren't really what we would hope for Flickr. In the same way that most desktop software management packages for photos, so things like iPhoto on the Mac or Adobe Photoshop Album or Picasa, the way they treat the videos that come off of your still camera or your camera phone, the same way they treat photos, we would consider that. There's no plans to do it anytime soon. But I don't think Flickr in its current incarnation, work as a video site in the way that Yahoo Video is a video site, or YouTube is a video site, or any of the other video sites or video sites. Not for produced videos that have a title sequence and then credits at the end, things like that.
I think that the buzz around YouTube and on the video site would diminish the interest of consumers for just photo sites, pure photo sites, as more and more people are actually going to videos.
Yeah, I don't think so at all, to be honest. I think that they're not. I mean, in one sense, people have a finite amount of time, and so they'll do a finite number of things during the course of the day. But there's no sense in which this and what Esther is doing here is directly replaceable with video. Just because I can see she had dinner with Jake Peters of Infosys, and I can see the Mexican Independence Day celebration. And I can take all this in, and I'm not going to, as much as I like her, I'm not going to watch 35 videos of her over the course of the day. Because I have 400 contacts in Flickr. I don't even know how many I have now. But this page in Flickr is one of the
most visited pages.
Yeah, the most visited page. This shows all the photos from my friends. So every Flickr user has one of these, and it goes to your lizard brain almost to check it, and also to check the recent activity on your photos, because it's fun to see what's going on with everyone. And this wouldn't work in video format. So they're just different.
Did you think about maybe combining the site with devices like maybe the iPod and try to make it maybe more seamless?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, not the iPod in particular, but devices in general. So we have a partnership with Nokia that their most recent high-end, the N-series phones have automatic uploading to Flickr built in. Pretty much around the map.
Also on your, uploading, downloading.
Yeah, we've got, one of the things I think that's also significant about Flickr too is the API, and so we have developers all over the world developing applications for, an example of this, we don't have any, for example, people who could make a UI for Linux for uploading. We don't just have any on our team. We didn't have any like Cocoa developers who could do a Mac uploader, and so we opened up the API, and literally within 3 days there was a Mac uploader that somebody had made. I mean, it was kind of an amazing thing. And so there's people using the API can basically make applications for any device. Here's an example up
but
here.
This would actually never ship. Someone announced this product, a company called eStarling.
Yeah.
But this particular one never shipped, so we're trying to figure out what happened there.
Yeah. So people can make, for example, like a Wi-Fi photo frame where they can upload people.
Here's a how-to project to make your own DIY photo frame.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not for everyone, but.
But people make screensavers, and people make all of these different applications. I mean, there's even this application whereby you can get a little badge ID. And you can just somebody just made this. You can make a little ID badge, and you'd be amazed at actually how you can get into press areas just using this badge. But it just says Flickr photographer and has a picture of you, and it's like a little ID. And somebody just made this as a little application that you can download and then get laminated, and you have a little badge. So people make amazing things using our API. Because they can just build on top of it. And
there's one developer, the guy who made this.
The guy who made this
is his site,
and he made all of these applications. You can make the inspirational poster one is kind of hilarious.
He used Flickr logo. Is that okay?
He has permission.
He has permission from us.
With this standard trademark issues.
Yeah.
But these. One of the great things is we really can't do everything. We already Flickr's. In some senses too feature rich, and there's still more stuff we want to add. But there's, he has a couple dozen now little projects. So this one, let's see, I'll sign in.
Obviously, he's making money out of that.
Yeah.
Do you share? Is there a revenue sharing agreement, or
no? He just makes money.
Or to use the API, that's just free.
Well, the API is free for non-commercial use and free for commercial use with our permission. Eventually, we'll probably start charging for commercial usage, but a nominal fee, just because it's kind of a management headache for us. We don't want, it's not going to be a primary revenue source. But this adds a lot of value to Flickr. It gives more value to users to have their photos in Flickr because there's this huge variety of tools available.
I think a lot of the thing about Flickr is the metadata that you attach to photos. Is that a standardized? Is it standard like you pay metadata?
No,
or is it all proprietary?
Well, in one sense it's proprietary because it's our own schema. In another sense,
it's not.
How much how technical we want to get. But if the API is completely open, so people have built a number of downloading tools or backing up tools that get all their metadata and photos out of Flickr. And there's certainly no desire on our part to keep it locked up. It's that the standards for photo metadata were developed. The biggest one is there's two EXIF, which is mostly technical information about the camera.
Like your f-stop or
the aperture,
shutter speed.
And then there's IPTC, which was the International Press Communication. I can't remember exactly what it stands for. But it's essentially AP, Reuters, those kinds of organizations, and metadata that's relevant to news organizations. So it doesn't include things like our tags or comments or favorites and things like that. So there isn't really a standard way of expressing it.
Is there any interest in creating that?
Yeah, we've actually done a little bit of work on what a standard would look like for that. I mean, we want people to be able to produce something with it, like say a DVD slideshow or something, or just have it in some generic XML format. There's not very many places they can take that data and put it into something else. In other words, if you get a comment on your photo in a paper, and then you import that into Adobe Photoshop album, there's no place for that comment by someone else to show up. It's going to be tied to that user. And some things like the tags are quite portable, but not all of them are. Groups of it because the groups don't exist.
How large do you think is that community that or partners that make money out of Flickr, that provides services for Flickr users?
I don't have a good sense of how large the commercial API development community is, maybe several hundred. There's about 30,000 API keys that are out. So every person who wants to use the API for any purpose needs a key. And there's things, there's plugins for popular blogging software like WordPress, where you can pull in your Flickr photos and have them on your own blog. and someone developed that application and gave it away for free.
How difficult is it to get a key from it?
If it's non-commercial, you just fill out a form and it generates it automatically. If it's commercial, then there's someone in our team who actually looks at all of them and reviews them. Because some of the commercial applications are things that are, we basically try to protect the user's interests in the kinds of applications that people can build. Because a typical case, and this happens 5 or 6 times now, someone has a travel site, for example, and rather than license stock photos of the locations, they just do a tag search on Flickr and pull out the photos. But the users of Flickr still retain that copyright. So in commercial cases, we like to look at the application and make sure it's not something like that. Because, we don't want to be facilitating things that are going to make our users angry, basically.
So with that, let's take one more question for today.
I'd like to find out, with your interest, are you working with, the cameras are now showing up with Wi-Fi chips in there. What's your interest in working with, trying to get the PC out as the middleman and actually working with the camera manufacturers, software manufacturers too?
Well, we have a partnership with Nikon, the camera maker in the traditional sense, but also Nokia, which produces more cameras than anyone now.
That's actually a really interesting fact that Nokia now ships more cameras than Nikon or Canon
or Sony or Kodak
or anyone. It's
we're
really
working with a lot of people, and actually, I don't know if this works right now, but this is kind of off the path of Flickr, but a cool piece of technology. I have an alpha chip from a company called iFi. So this is SD memory. It's pretty standard in a lot of devices, and they've packed the memory down to the bottom third of it, and then added a CPU and added a Wi-Fi controller. So you put it in any device that accepts SD and has a gig of RAM, and it will also, when it finds a Wi-Fi connection, just from this thing, in any camera, upload your photos to their central service, which does whatever you want. But of course, it'll upload it in Flickr as well. Right.
Cameras are coming out.
Who has an SD?
What's the name of the company that does this?
iFi, EYE dash
FI.
FI. Does someone have an SD device? Even a Trio?
No. Get a trio.
Yeah. So try putting here.
It'll upload it to your account, right? Because your card's set up.
I have it. This is an alpha. They're not going to be ready in production until next year sometime. And I don't know if it's working now because I have to test it in a few weeks. But we'll find out. Green button?
Yeah.
I forget how to use this. There we go.
So you take a photo of everyone taking a photo.
Okay. Now we'll have to take one more question because it'll take about 2 minutes for each one.
So, but is there anything you tell us what you're doing with Nikon? What are the typical things you're talking about?
Yeah, I can tell you what the typical, I mean the stuff that's public. But that's an advertising sponsorship kind of relationship, and there's some other components to it too. But we're definitely working with.
Is Stunning Gallery still?
Yeah.
Have you seen the Nikon Stunning Gallery? It's a really beautiful. It's a really beautiful site. So. So basically, the way that people, so all of our users were able to contribute to this by just tagging their photo Nikon Stunning Gallery, and that's all you needed to do to participate. And so anybody who had taken a photo and wanted to participate could get their photos up here on this site. And there's just some like kind of remarkable, wonderful photos, and they were partnering with Flickr to promote their new cameras, their new line of cameras. So this was a separate site that was built specifically for Nikon, but any Flickr user could participate.
Any thoughts about changing the UI on traditional cameras to actually be more appropriate the type of use your users are?
Yeah, well, I think that it's a funny question because there's so many different aspects to it. But one of them is that the cost of hardware manufacture for a lot of the components of cameras has come down so much, and there's the rise of companies like Flextronics and contract manufacturing, and the falling price of RAM. All those factors go into the ability to make things that are a little bit more specific to certain kinds of behaviors or certain kinds of audiences. So Flickr is a great example of that. And we actively talk to, not in necessarily a partnership, but just to encourage the development of devices that would be,
Right. Ultimately, we're not a hardware company.
Yeah.
But we do try to influence the development of these things.
And I personally almost wish we were a hardware company because I just find it so fun and interesting. But yeah. So we have to do it vicariously through other people.
This may sound mundane to you, but have you thought about working with any printing services or printer manufacturers at all?
Well, it's a great example. I wish I had some of them with me, but
this?
Yeah, that's another good example. But here, in the context of Flickr, you can order prints.
So I can order prints from Flickr?
Yeah, you can order prints from Flickr. You can also, using the API, you can
print US stamps with photos on them.
Flickr,
yeah.
Or a number of other companies like Coop.
We'll make here's an example of like a little photo book that we did for a contest that we ran, and it printed all of the winners' photos in this like little kind of book format. It's kind of neat.
So
and that's different from like Yahoo Photos, is it?
Well, the regular print fulfillment,
it's the same one.
Yeah, we work with. It actually goes into the Yahoo Photos flow for regular printing. But there's a number of parties that just use the API. So this is the one I wanted to show you on the top, the mood cards.
This was just released this week.
Yeah, a couple days ago. And
This
it's
is brand
super
new.
popular. And they're about half size of a regular business card, and they're satin finish. They're much nicer to touch, so it's easier to explain them that way. But because they're a thin strip, you have to crop your photos pretty dramatically to get them on there. So it's not meant to be a print of the photo, but it's to make personal, businessy cards. And they're giving away 10 to the first 10,000 pro users. And selling them for $20 for 100 of them. So there's a lot of different printing that goes on. Oh yeah, and these we do.
And how big a business is the printing?
Printing for us is not a big business, to be honest. We have more activity with this kind of stuff than we do with traditional 4x6 or 5x7 printing with Flickr.
You switched to Ajax-based application a few months ago, right? What are the experiences with actually coding it, and what kind of tools are you using it today to maintain and expand it?
We actually don't use any public frameworks or toolkits to use it. The primary developer for this front end stuff, and for everyone else, Ajax, maybe I shouldn't get into explaining it, but it's this photo organization tool that runs right in the browser, so I can add tags to all these photos, or make them all private, or add photos to sets using drag and drop, or add photos in the map, and all that stuff. The primary developer of this, Caterina, was one of the people who first started using Ajax methods. He was a real pioneer in this stuff. So there's a lot of experience inside of Flickr on how to code these applications.
Have you looked at Dojo, for instance?
Yes, we're actually, I know several people who run Dojo, including Alex Russell, and so do the lead developers at Flickr. Dojo's probably overkill for Flickr.
Why is that?
Because it does a lot of things that we don't need, so windowing and stuff like that. That could change over time, but right now, because Flickr kind of grew organically in little pieces here and there, we're using a couple of libraries from Yahoo's open source UI libraries. This is probably way too technical for everyone, but the easing and the drag and drop are both Yahoo libraries. We have nothing against Dojo. It's a pretty big system, and I think it's probably gotten a lot smaller and more lightweight over the last year because they're still working on it, obviously. But it's unlikely we'd switch now just because it all works, so we don't get anything else to change.
Great.
All right then.
Would it be possible that your ages?
Sure.
21.
21 and then
21 forever.
19.
37, 33.
There you go.
And which one's which?
I'm 30. I'm older.
Were you going to pull something from the card?
You can swap them though.
Yeah.
I don't think any of
Yeah, it didn't seem to work, so I'm not sure what happened.
All right then, guys. Well, we'll wrap it up. I want to thank you all for coming, and thank you to Sue and Caterina.
Gervais Restaurant, authentic French cuisine in Silicon Valley.